Cooking at Home program. This time we're going to be doing the Unofficial Downton Abbey Cookbook. We're going to be making a couple of the recipes from the afternoon tea. To know a little bit more about the afternoon tea, it's usually served between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. in the afternoon. There's usually finger sandwiches, scones, pastries, fruit cakes, and a big layered cake at the end. And it's usually served with black teas and maybe a couple of others, but traditionally black. And let's see what we're gonna make. The first recipe we're going to follow for afternoon tea is the classic egg salad tea sandwiches. They're going to end up being our finger sandwiches for tea today. The first instruction says to place 6 eggs into a pan of water, which we have right here. You're going to put it on your stove top. Wait until it boils on high heat, then reduce to a medium heat and just let them boil in there for about 10 minutes. And then after that, we're going to place the eggs in ice water and chill for about 10 minutes. Alright, so our eggs are starting to boil on high heat, so we're going to turn it down to medium heat and let it just boil and cook for about 10 minutes. While the eggs are boiling for our egg salad tea sandwiches, we're going to work on our next recipe, which is the sweet cream scone. You're going to need 1 cup of sour cream that you're going to put in a small bowl. Depending on how it's packed, you might need a spoon to get it out after measuring it. Try to get as much of it out as you can. 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, all in the same bowl. Alright, and you're just going to mix all of that together. Make sure you can get it as mixed as you possibly can. I think that should be good enough. And then step 2 is going to be preheating the oven to 350 and getting a large baking pan and greasing it. If you have cooking spray, you can use that, or if you want to, you can use a stick of butter and just go over the whole area of the pan and use that so nothing sticks to it. Okay, so our eggs have been boiling for 10 minutes. We're going to take it off of this burner, put it on a cold one, and you're going to want to make sure that you put it in cold water or ice cold water if you please, and just have it where it's in there cooling off for about 10 minutes. For our next step in the recipe, you're going to need a large bowl. You're going to put in 4 cups of flour, 1.5 cups of sugar, you're going to need a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. And you're going to need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 1 and 2. Alright, after that, you would normally put in a teaspoon of salt, but the butter I ended up buying was salted butter. I couldn't find unsalted, so we're just going to use that without adding in the salt. It does ask that you cut up the butter at room temperature into pieces, and you're going to have 1 cup of butter of that. Okay, so I had sticks of butter, so I cut them into squares, and I'm adding it into the mixture now. They're going to be a little bit soft because they're room temperature. And after that, you're going to stir in the sour cream mixture that we had made before. So we're gonna get our second bowl. It kind of looks like this now stirred. Looks like it was having a reaction from the baking soda. You might need to get a spatula to get everything out of the bowl. And then if you remember our last video, this is why you wash your hands when you're baking. Alright, so grab my spatula. I'm going to try and get as much of the mixture as I can. This is as much as I can get out of there. So we have the sour cream mixture in, and now we're going to mix everything together. Okay, so we have everything cut in. You might need to cut the butter a little bit smaller than I did to have everything mix a little bit well. And then it calls for 1 egg that we're going to put in there as well. Alright, everything's in there, and you're just going to mix everything together. I'm going to at least use my spoon at first. Alright, so it's going to get a little bit messy. You want to put a little bit of flour on a surface, and this is going to be the surface where you're going to knead the dough. The flour is there so it doesn't stick. So you're going to turn the dough out onto the surface and start kneading it. I'm just going to be doing a little bit at a time because I do not have a big enough surface to do all of it at a time. But you're going to knead it and pat it until it's about a 3/4 inch thick round. So I'm just going to do this in 2 separate pieces, but after you turn it into a 3/4 inch round, you're going to cut it into 12 different wedges and place them on your greased baking pan that we greased earlier. So I'm going to start working on kneading each of the dough pieces, and I'll get back to you in a little bit. Alright, so these are my scones cut up into the wedges. They're not uniform in size, so some might cook a little bit differently than the others. I am not a professional baker. I'm just doing this for fun. So after you have them in wedges on your greased pan, you can choose to lightly brush them with a heavy cream. You can make your own, or you can buy some at the store, and you can sprinkle a little bit of granulated sugar on them. If you did want to put some heavy cream on them, you'll just need some sort of brush to put on the cream. This is going to help make it the sweet cream, so I'm going to be using a basting brush just to lightly put sweet cream on all of them, just like this. Now you don't need a lot, and you don't have to put this on unless you want to. It's just going to add a little bit more flavor. But you're going to repeat this with all of them. And remember, you can also add the sugar in it on it as well if you want to. I think I'm only going to do it to these two because I think it will be too sweet. But you just add a little bit of sugar on top. And then after this, you're going to bake it in the oven for 12 to 15 minutes or until golden brown. If you are going to check the oven to see if they've turned golden brown, make sure you don't open the oven door, or else it's going to let all of the heat out, and it's going to affect cooking time and then how it has cooked inside the oven. Alright, so once the eggs are done cooling off, you can start peeling the shells off of them. One trick that I use, if you don't mind them being beat up, which it doesn't matter for this, We're going to be chopping them up after this. You can just shake them in a hard container like a pan, so it starts cracking it for you and it makes it easier to start peeling them. I'll be back with the next step after I'm done with these. Once you have the eggshells off of the eggs, you can dice them. You're going to want to put them into a cube shape. If not, you can also use an egg slicer, which you just kind of peel it here. It can come out in one piece, and then you just put it in the other direction. And it cubes it for you. And you can just do that with every egg. And once you're done with every egg, we'll start adding all the rest of the ingredients. Once you get all of the eggs cubed, you're going to add in 4 tablespoons of mayonnaise, This recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of mustard. Unfortunately, nobody in my family likes mustard, so we're going to keep that ingredient out. It calls for a 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, which if you don't have a 1/8 teaspoon, you can just fill up a 1/4 teaspoon about half full and add it in. Or if you like a little bit more spice, you can do more than an 1/8 teaspoon. Alright, so I have about half of a 1/4. Adding that in there. And then you're going to want to add about a teaspoon of salt. And then what you're going to do is mix all of that together in the bowl. And then if you want to, you can add more or less of the ingredients than what it says in the cookbook. So if you think this is still too thick, you can add a little bit more mayonnaise. But again, we're just sticking with what it says in the recipe. Alright, so that looks like it's about mixed here. So then we're going to need our bread. Okay, so I have my bread here. The recipe says that this can make about 10 to 12 sandwiches, but I'm just going to do one on camera. So you can dish it out with a spoon or you can get a knife, but you're going to put on one slice of bread and spread it as best as you can. You can remove the crust, which it actually says to do in the recipe, but I actually like the crust, so I'm going to keep it. But you'll do this for every single sandwich. And if you feel like you put too much on here, which I probably just did, you can always take some off. But you spread it on the sandwiches. Put the other one over it, and then you're done. But you're going to place all of them on a baking sheet, wrap in plastic, and you're going to want to refrigerate them for about 35 minutes. And then you can use a bread cutter if you have different shapes to make them different shapes, like stars or circles, or when you're done you can cut them diagonally or in half. But I'm gonna finish all of these and hopefully I'll be back with the finished product. Alright, so I don't have a multi-tiered tray like you would traditionally have for afternoon tea. I just have my little platter here with sandwiches and scones. I did learn though, if you are going to do this, it's probably easier to cut up the bread first and then put the egg mixture in for the egg salad tea sandwiches, so you don't have to worry about the mess afterwards. And I did end up cutting one sandwich without the crust for the most part, just to see how it would look, and it does actually look better without the crust. And then the scones cooked through, despite the different sizes, and it said you kind of want a golden brown like this at the bottom. So make sure you have this to make sure it's cooked, and also if you want to at the top to kind of press and check it and make sure that when you're pressing it, it's not just the dough staying down, because that means it's undercooked and it still needs to cook a little bit more. I did have to cook them a couple of minutes longer just because of the different sizes, but once you have these all together, you can have your afternoon tea, and it just makes it better if you have your own little teacup. Alright, that's all I have for you today for the Downton Abbey afternoon tea. If you'll have any requests for what you'll want me to try baking next, just let me know. I'll see you guys next time.